Chapter 1: The Diet Coke in the Bathroom Door. The Odyssey firm took up 9 floors of the glass building across the street from the bar where I worked. The bar was called Lawson's, after the man whose name was on the lease, but I had worked the taps there for 5 years and it felt like my second home. Lawyers were good business. They came in around 6 with their ties loosened and their phones face up on the bar, ordered doubles, complained about partners and billable hours, and tipped in a hurry without doing the math, which usually worked out in my favor. I knew most of the Odyssey crowd by drink if not by name. There was the woman who ordered an old-fashioned, ate the cherry and left half the glass. There was the tax guy who switched to coffee at 7 because his wife could smell whiskey on him, his words. And then there was the Diet Coke. He showed up about 8 months before all of this. 6:15 most weekdays, always alone. He wore dark suits and set his briefcase on the stool beside him so nobody could sit there. He took the far end of the bar near the register, ordered a Diet Coke, drank it slowly while he read things on his phone, paid cash, tipped like the drink cost 4 times what it did, and left. That was the whole show, every night for months. He didn't watch the game. He didn't talk to the other suits even when they clearly knew him. A couple of the Odyssey guys would clap him on the shoulder on their way out, and he'd give them a smile that shut off as soon as they passed. With me he was polite in the technical sense. He said thanks, he said keep the change, and he never once looked me in the eye. I tried small talk exactly once. He'd come in soaked from a March rain and I slid the Diet Coke over and said something about the weather, which is the easiest layup in bartending. He said yeah to the bar top, picked up his phone, and that was the end of the conversation, so I stopped trying. Some regulars want a friend and some want a vending machine with a pulse, and I can be either. The tips stayed good either way. On the bad days he was a vodka cranberry. I figured that pattern out by the 3rd month. Diet Coke meant a normal day. Vodka cranberry meant somebody upstairs had made his life hell, and on those days he drank the first one fast and the second one slow, and his jaw stayed tight the whole time. One Thursday he ordered his second before I'd cleared the first glass, so I set a water down next to it without being asked. He looked at the water for a second. Thanks, he said. It was the same word he always used. He drank the water first. That was the longest exchange we'd had in half a year. Dana said I was obsessed with him. Dana worked the bar with me on busy nights and she was wrong, for the record. Noticing your regulars is the job. I noticed the old-fashioned woman was going through a divorce, and I noticed the tax guy's wife was winning, and I noticed that the Diet Coke squinted at his phone and held it close to his face, even though he couldn't have been much past 30. I'd have bet money there was a glasses prescription somewhere that he refused to fill. Noticing is what they pay me for. Nobody ever accused me of being obsessed with the tax guy. He probably just doesn't like you, Dana said one night while the Diet Coke was counting out bills at the end of the bar. Some guys hate bartenders, daddy drank or whatever. He tips 25%. Guilt money, she said, and went to close out a tab. Maybe she had a point. He'd talk to anybody before he'd talk to me. I'd seen him exchange actual words with Marcus in the kitchen window with the beer rep, once with a total stranger who asked to borrow the briefcase stool. He gave them full sentences. Then I'd come down the bar to refill his glass and he'd study the wood grain until I left. I'm a likable guy, ask anyone. I decided it wasn't worth thinking about, and then I kept thinking about it anyway, usually around 6:10 on weekdays. In May, Lawson decided the bar needed a themed night. Half off everything, ticky drinks, plastic lays in a box by the door. Dana and I told him it would be a madhouse. He said that was the point and ordered 300 paper umbrellas. He was right, and so were we. By 8 o'clock that Friday the crowd stood 3 deep at the bar, the ticket printer never stopped, and somebody had already been cut off and sent home in a cab. I had sweat through my shirt by 9. It was the best night of business we'd had all year, and I say that as the man who mopped up after it. The Diet Coke came in around 9. I clocked him at the door, which said something because I was mid-pour on a round of 4 beers with 6 tickets hanging, and I still caught the door. He wasn't in the suit. It was the first time in 8 months I'd seen him out of one. He wore dark jeans and a button-up with the collar open, and it took me a second to place him and then another second to register the guy walking in behind him. The guy was tall, built, good-looking, and aware of it. His hand landed on the small of the Diet Coke's back and steered him through the crowd. The 4th beer overflowed. Foam ran across my knuckles into the drip tray, and Dana said something I didn't catch, and I dumped the glass and started the pour again. They came up to my end of the bar to order. Up close, out of the suit, he looked younger. The tall guy draped an arm across his shoulders, ordered a rum punch, and then said, "What do you want, Michael?" "Vodka cranberry," Michael said to the bar top. 8 months he'd been sitting at my bar, and that was how I finally learned his name. I made the drinks. He paid cash and tipped too much, same as always, and the tall guy steered him off to a high top near the wall. From my well, I could see them between heads in the crowd. The tall guy did most of the talking. Michael turned his glass in circles on the table and laughed at what looked like the right moments. Around 11, my well ran out of cocktail napkins and the backup boxes lived in the storeroom past the bathrooms. I shouldered through the crowd into the back hallway and stopped 2 steps in. They were against the wall by the men's room door. The tall guy had a forearm braced over Michael's head and they were kissing, deep enough that neither of them heard me. Michael's hand was twisted up in the front of the guy's shirt. I backed out of the hallway before either of them saw me, returned to the bar without the napkins, and sent Dana for them 10 minutes later. So the Diet Coke was gay. That was fine, and it was also none of my business, and I filed it away and went back to work. That didn't last long. For the rest of the night, I ran half a step behind. I rang a round of tequila shots twice and had to void it with Lawson's manager code. I gave a man change for a 50 when he'd paid with a 20, and he was honest about it, which is the only reason I know. Dana quietly took over my printer for a stretch, and from Dana, silence was a loud statement. Between tickets, I kept finding the high top in the crowd. The tall guy had his hand on the back of Michael's neck now, thumb moving, and Michael was letting him. They left a little after midnight. The same hand steered Michael out the door. He didn't glance at the bar on his way out, but he never looked at the bar, so there was no reason that night should be different. I watched the door anyway until a guy in a plastic lei waved a card in my face. Last call cleared the place out by 1:30, and Lawson's tropical experiment ended with me alone at 2 a.m., flipping chairs onto tables with a lei still hanging off the beer pulls. My drawer came up $11 short from the 50. I wrote it on the slip and signed it. I kept seeing the hallway while I mopped. Michael's hand twisted in that shirt. For 8 months I'd had the man filed under quiet, boring, and probably hates me, and now there was a second version of him pinned to a wall by the bathrooms, and the two of them refused to be the same person. I was just tired. It had been a 14-hour day and half the city had come through that door. I killed the lights, set the alarm, and locked up. On the walk to my car, I caught myself doing the math on whether he'd be back Monday at 6:15, and I told myself that was about money. Regulars are money. Welcome to the Portal Library. Step through and let the magic begin. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you'd love more stories or have a request. New videos uploaded every Friday. The Bartender and the Closeted Lawyer, a gay short story. Chapter 2, The Friday Night Shift. On Monday, the suit was back. He came in at 6:15, the briefcase took its stool, and a Diet Coke went down the bar. He read his phone at arm's length and didn't look at me, and whatever had happened against that hallway wall stayed in the hallway. I charged him the usual and kept my mouth shut. 2 weeks went by that way, then came Friday. He came in at 8, which was wrong for him, and he still had the suit on, but the tie was gone and the collar was open. He didn't sit at his end. He took the stool right in front of my well and set the briefcase down on the floor, the first time in 8 months it hadn't guarded the seat beside him. "Vodka cranberry," he said. He drank the first one fast and the second one slow, which I knew. Then he ordered a third, which was new. The crowd thinned out after midnight. Marcus shut the kitchen down and went home. Dana cashed out at 1 and told me not to do anything stupid, which was what she said every night. By last call it was me, 2 college kids finishing a pitcher, and Michael. I flagged the kids' tab and called it, and the kids left. Michael pulled out his phone to settle up and held it at arm's length, squinting at the screen, tilting it against the glare. Then he sighed, reached into the briefcase, and came up with a glasses case. The frames were thick and black and heavy, and they swallowed half his face. He put them on, did the tip math, signed, and looked at me over the top of them. "Don't," he said. I didn't say anything. "You were going to." "I knew it," I said. 8 months of you squinting at that phone, I'd have bet money. "The contacts dry out at night." He took a sip and set the glass down. "I have a prescription from hell. I've had these since I was 9. Not those exact ones. These exact frames, they don't make them anymore. I buy them off a reseller in Ohio. I should have walked him out then. It was past 2, the door needed locking, the chairs were still down, and the mop bucket was sitting in the hallway where I'd left it at midnight. Instead, I locked the front door with him still inside it, came back behind the bar and poured myself a whiskey. "You're staying?" he asked. "I live here until the chairs go up, you're the one staying." He looked at the door, then at his glass, and stayed. He told me about his day. 9 months on one case, he said. 9 months of weekends, document review, and a partner who called him at 6 in the morning with questions she already knew the answers to. That afternoon, the whole thing had settled in under an hour. "Everything I wrote this year is confetti," he said. "They didn't even read the brief I checked, the file was never opened." "So that's a vodka cranberry day." "That's a 3 vodka cranberry day." He lifted the glass. 4. He'd taken his jacket off somewhere while talking about his day and rolled his sleeves back, and that was when I saw the tattoo. It sat on his inner left forearm, a few inches up from the wrist. It was an orange cartoon cat in a little detective hat, maybe 2 inches tall, mid-stride, with a magnifying glass in its paw. I lost the thread of what I was saying. He followed my eyes down to his arm and went red from the collar up. "It's from a show," he said. "It's a cat." "It's Mittens, from Mittens, P.I." He turned his forearm flat on the bar so I could see it properly, which surprised me because every instinct I'd watched on this man for 8 months said he should have rolled the sleeve back down. It ran 6 seasons, Saturday mornings. The cat solves crimes in a city where everyone else is a dog. And nobody notices he's a cat. That's the whole show. There's an episode where he wears a trench coat for the entire 22 minutes and the chief of police, a bloodhound, never figures it out. He was talking faster now and his hands had gotten involved. "I had a Mittens lunchbox. I wrote a letter to the network when they canceled it. I was 11. They sent back a form letter and a sticker. And then 20 years later, you paid a man to needle it into your arm. I just passed the bar exam. I walked out of the testing center and the shop was across the street." He looked at the cat. "Everyone at the firm thinks I don't have tattoos. I wear long sleeves in July." I refilled his water without thinking about it and topped my whiskey also without thinking about it. The chairs stayed down. We talked about the show for longer than 2 grown men should be able to, and he recited the opening narration from memory, doing the announcer voice, glasses sliding down his nose. I laughed hard enough that I had to set the bottle down. He grinned at that. It was the first time in 8 months I'd seen his smile. Somewhere in the 3rd whiskey I got brave or stupid, and the two were running close together by then. "The guy," I said, "from the Ticky Night, is he coming back around?" Michael went still. His glass stopped mid-turn on the bar and he looked at me a second too long, checking something in my face. I kept wiping the same dry spot in silence. "No," he said finally, "that's done. 3 dates. His name was Trevor, which should have been the warning." "What happened?" "Nothing happened. He talked about his lifting program for 40 minutes, sent his food back twice at a place I picked, and complained the whole night that your drinks were weak. At half price." "They were not weak." "I know, I watched you make them." He pushed his glasses up. "He was a jerk. I kept waiting for it to get better, and the night I figured out it wouldn't was the night you saw us, so that's a great memory now." He winced as soon as he said it. So he'd known I saw or guessed. I thought about the hallway and the napkins and decided we were already past it. "You can do better than a guy who insults half-off drinks," I said. "That's the consensus," he said and finished his glass. The clock over the register said 10 to 3. He started gathering himself. He folded the jacket over his arm, reached for the briefcase, took the glasses off, and then, after a second, put them back on, which I took as a high compliment. And I heard myself talking before I had time to think. "That heist movie's out," I said, "the one with the train. I'm going Friday." I had not until that sentence been going Friday. "Come with me." He stopped with the briefcase halfway off the floor. With the glasses on he was easy to read, and what I read was a man rerunning the sentence to make sure he had it right. "To the movies," he said. "Friday, it's at 9 o'clock, so I can still come in after and prep for Saturday." He set the briefcase back down. "Yeah," he said, "okay, yes. Give me your phone." He handed it over and I put my number in. I passed it back and he typed something and my phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked it. The text said, "This is Michael, the one with the cat." "So you know it's me," he said. Friday, I said, and let him out into the street. Chapter 3: The Cinema and the Alibi. Getting Friday off meant trading Dana 2 Sundays for it, and Dana did not let it go for cheap. "You never give up a Friday," she said, counting her drawer. "I have a thing. A thin. A movie with a guy from With Michael, the Diet Coke." She stopped counting for a second, then went back to it. "Have fun on your thing," she said. I changed shirts twice before leaving the apartment and got to the theater 19 minutes early. I sat in my car for 11 of them. Then I went in and bought 2 tickets at the counter, because that was faster than him fumbling for his phone at the door, and stood in the lobby reading a cardboard cutout for a movie I had no plans to see. Michael showed up at 10 to 9 in jeans and the glasses, no contacts at night. He spotted me, lifted a hand, and crossed the lobby. "You're early," he said. "You're earlier than I expected too." "I'm a lawyer. If I'm not 15 minutes early, I bill someone for it." He nodded at the concession line. "What's the move here? 2 popcorns. 1 large is cheaper than 2 smalls. It's a scam in the other direction." "1 large," he agreed and bought it, and a box of the chocolate-covered raisins that no one on earth actually likes, which he then defended all the way down the hallway to screen 6. The theater was half full. We took 2 seats on the aisle and I put the popcorn in the empty seat on my other side. Before the lights even went down, Michael reached across me, took the bucket, and set it on the armrest between us. "It's a shared resource," he said. "Don't hoard the resource." The trailers ran. He had opinions on all of them, delivered low, leaned toward me so the people in front wouldn't hear. Every time he leaned, his shoulder touched mine, and every time I held my drink very still until he leaned back. Then the movie started, and the armrest situation developed. His forearm came down on the shared armrest about 10 minutes in. It was the tattoo arm. The sleeve was pushed back and the cat's hat showed at the edge of the cuff. His arm settled an inch from mine. The heat came off it through that 1 inch of air. I kept my own arm pinned along my leg. Around minute 30 he shifted and his elbow came to rest against mine and he left it there. I left mine there too. There was nowhere else for it to go. That was the reason. The heist crew got into the vault somewhere in there. I missed how. I caught the train and the double cross on the train and a stretch in the middle where our hands hit the popcorn at the same time twice. Both times I got there first and pulled back, and the second time he huffed through his nose, took my hand by the wrist and planted it back in the bucket. "You paid for half," he whispered. His mouth was close enough that the whisper landed on my ear instead of in the room. I ate the popcorn. I could not tell you a single thing that happened on screen for the next several minutes, and the movie was not the problem. At some point, a phone alarm went off in my pocket, low but audible. It was the 11:30 reminder I'd set so I could get back to the bar and break down for Saturday like I'd told him I would. The label on the screen said prep. Michael tipped his head toward me. "Do you need to go?" "No," I said, and dismissed it without looking at it twice. The movie ended at 11:45. We walked out arguing, which I want to be clear started as his fault. "The vault math doesn't work," he said, pushing the lobby door open with his back so he could keep facing me. 11 minutes of guard rotation. The drill alone takes 9 in the scene where they test it. That leaves 2 minutes for a 4-minute crawl through the duct. The movie shows us the numbers and then ignores its own numbers. Nobody else in that theater did the guard math. The writers should have done the guard math. That's their whole job. He stopped on the sidewalk, the marquee light on his glasses. "I'm hungry. Are you hungry?" There was a 24-hour diner across the parking lot with a pie case by the register. We took a booth by the window. The vinyl was split on my side, the menus were laminated and sticky at one corner, and the waitress called us both honey and left a coffee pot within reach, which I have always considered the mark of a serious establishment. Michael ordered pancakes at midnight. He did it without irony, glasses sliding down his nose, finger planted on the menu. "Pancakes," I said. It's a diner. Ordering anything else at a diner after midnight is malpractice. "It's a burger for me, hun," I told the waitress, and Michael shook his head slowly, mourning my judgment, and the waitress laughed at him on my behalf and took the menus away. He went back to the heist. He built the case against the vault scene point by point, fork in the air for emphasis, and I came back at him with the only expertise I had. You know what nobody in that movie did? Pay 4 bar scenes, not one tab. The crew drinks whiskey neat all night on no sleep before fine motor work in a duct. As a professional, that crew is dead in the duct. Hold on, he set the fork down. That's a better plot hole than mine. Thank you. I'm taking it. I'm going to tell people that one as if it's mine. Hearsay, I said, and he laughed with his whole chest, head back. The couple at the counter glanced over. I sat there grinning at a burger. The pancakes came and the plates went, and the waitress refilled the coffee a third time without being asked. He told me about law school, about the moot court final where his pants split mid-argument. I finished the closing holding my jacket in front of me, he said, very dignified. The judge complimented my composure. I have never told the judge why. I told him how I'd ended up behind a bar, the band that didn't go anywhere, the side gig that turned into a day job. He asked follow-up questions. He asked what the band was called and winced honestly at the answer, and then he asked what I'd play now if I still played. Nobody had asked me that in about 6 years. When I looked at the window at our reflections and behind them the parking lot was nearly empty. My phone said 1:12. The bar prep was officially a Saturday morning problem, and I decided that at some point without preamble. The waitress dropped the check between us. We both reached and he got it and held it out of range. You bought the tickets, he said. We walked out into the lot. The night had cooled off and the marquee across the way had gone dark. Our cars were parked 4 spots apart. We stopped in the gap between them. This was good, Michael said. He had his keys in his hand and wasn't doing anything with them. The movie was bad. The movie was terrible. This was good. He looked at me through the glasses, and for a second I thought he was going to say something else. Instead, he knocked his knuckles once on the roof of my car. Go home, you have to prep in the morning. Whose fault is that? The vault math, he said, getting into his car, is the movie's fault, and he shut the door on his own laugh. I got in and started the engine. At the first red light, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. The text said, pancakes were the right call, you'll learn. The light turned green. I drove the rest of the way home working on my comeback. I hope you are enjoying this story so far. Happy Pride Month. We will cover a story for each letter of the LGBTQIA spectrum this month. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Chapter 4: The Arcade. He came back to the bar Saturday and stayed past closing. Sunday it was tacos from the truck by the courthouse, Monday a trivia night where he knew every answer except sports, Wednesday a batting cage where he was, and I say this with love, the worst hitter I have ever watched. Dana covered 2 of my closes that week and said nothing, which I chose not to examine. Thursday he texted me an address and 1 sentence, bring cash, they don't take cards, and I want no excuses from you later. The arcade sat in a strip mall between a vape shop and a mattress outlet. Inside, the carpet was black with planets on it, the air conditioning was losing, and 40 machines were all talking at once. A kid screamed somewhere near the back in either victory or grief. Michael was already at the change machine, feeding it bills in jeans and the glasses, sleeves rolled, the cat out for everyone to see. He poured half the tokens into my hand without asking. They were warm from the machine. Air hockey first, he said. I want you fresh when I beat you. He played air hockey in a stance. He had clearly done this before, knees bent, paddle flat, eyes moving with the puck, and he talked the entire time, calling fouls that did not exist in any rulebook on Earth. That was off the table, replay. It went in. It left the playing surface, replay. You're a cheater with a license to practice law. Allegedly, he said, and scored on me while I was laughing. He won 7-5 and was insufferable about it for exactly 1 machine's distance, until we got to the racing game and I found out he drove a virtual car no better than he parked a real one. The cockpits were bolted too close together. Every right hand turned through his elbow into my arm. Neither of us moved our arms. I beat him by half a lap and he never recovered from it. The pedal sticks, he said. Replay, I said, and he pulled out more tokens without another word. After the rematch we played the zombie game, the one with the 2 plastic shotguns bolted to the cabinet on cables. We stood shoulder to shoulder in front of the screen. The cabinet speakers howled and the guns kicked. When a thing lunged out of a doorway on my side, Michael stepped sideways into me, his whole arm against mine, and shot it without apologizing. He stayed there for the rest of the level. The screen ranked us collateral damage, and he took that personally too. Between machines, the noise dropped into a lull, both of us leaning against the racing game, splitting a flat soda from the counter. He turned a token over in his fingers. I billed 300 hours last month, he said. He said it low, and I had to lean in to catch the rest of it under a game behind us announcing a high score to nobody. This week I keep forgetting where my phone is. I didn't have anything smart for that. I handed him the soda and he drank some, and then he spotted the claw machine and stopped walking. There was an orange cat plush inside it, slumped against the glass. That's basically Mittens, he said with his hands and his forehead against the glass. That's a generic orange cat. It's the bootleg. Nobody draws an orange cat in this economy without knowing exactly what they're doing. He fed the machine a token and lined the claw up slowly, both hands on the controls, tongue between his teeth. The claw drifted, dipped, gripped the cat, lifted it a glorious 6 inches and dropped it at the lip of the chute. He fed it 7 more tokens. I leaned in over his shoulder to call directions. He elbowed me back once, and after that he let me stay. The cat moved a total of 4 inches and ended up in a worse position than it started. That machine made an offer it never intended to honor, he said, stepping back from the glass. That's fraud. I could draft the complaint tonight. You'd sue a claw machine. I'd win. We finished the night on skee-ball, side by side in the 2 end lanes, betting nothing and keeping score out loud anyway. He threw underhand with a hop in it. The tickets came chattering out of both machines. We fed the whole pile into the counting machine by the prize counter, and the screen said 380. The prize wall behind the counter started at 5,000 tickets and went up from there. Below the wall sat the bins, and in the second bin, between the army men and the sticky hands, there was a plastic cat. It was orange, sitting upright about the size of a thumb. It cost 350 tickets, which told me the arcade knew its business. I slid the cat across the glass to him with my 30 tickets of change. For your desk at the firm, I said. Nobody has to know. The room was as loud as it had been all night, machines going, the kid in the back screaming again. Michael picked the cat up and looked at it for longer than a 50-cent toy deserved. Then he put it in his shirt pocket. Nobody has to know, he agreed. The door wheezed shut behind us and the parking lot went quiet all at once, my ears still ringing with games I could no longer hear. The night had cooled. Our cars sat 3 spots apart this time. We stopped in the gap between them. Michael had his keys in his hand again, and again he wasn't doing anything with them. I'm not tired, he said. Me neither. My place is 10 minutes from here. He looked at the arcade door, then back at me. I have a couch, a TV, we could watch a movie. Yeah, I said, okay. Okay, he unlocked his car and the lights blinked in the dark lot. Follow me. If you lose me at a light, the address is. I won't lose you, I said. Chapter 5, The Microwave Light. His place was a townhouse 10 minutes from the arcade, in a row of identical townhouses with different doors. He took his shoes off, so I did too. The living room looked barely lived in. Gray couch, clean coffee table, a TV too big for the wall, and then there was the bookshelf, where the law books stopped halfway and the rest was movies in alphabetical order, and a mug shaped like a cat's head, holding pens. He took the plastic cat out of his shirt pocket and stood it on the TV stand, facing the room. Drinks, he said. I have water, orange juice, and 1 beer I can't vouch for. As a professional, I'm not touching that beer. Water it is. He put on Lego Batman without consulting me. You've seen it, he asked. No. He looked at me with real concern. Okay, that's fine, we're fixing it tonight. He came back with the waters and sat down closer than where he'd started. I didn't move away. The movie played and he mouthed the lines half a second before the screen said them, and I started watching for that instead of the jokes. The jokes reached me second-hand after that. He'd start laughing a beat early, head tipping back, the TV light moving on his throat, and I'd end up laughing at him laughing. Half an hour in, his arm went along the back of the couch behind me. The light kept catching the cat on his forearm. I drank my water slower than I had ever drunk anything. The credits ran all the way out, and neither of us reached for the remote. There's a sequel, he said. It's worse, which makes it better. I'll make popcorn. He went to the kitchen. There was nothing for me to do in the kitchen, but I went anyway and leaned against the counter by the sink. The kitchen was dark except for the stove clock, and he didn't hit the lights either. He pulled a popcorn bag from the cabinet, put it in, and the microwave came on with its hum and its light. The light reached about 3 feet into the room and he stood at the edge of it. 3 minutes, he said low, and the first kernel went off. He leaned on the counter across from me, arms folded, the microwave light on half his face, the glasses catching a little of it. He was saying something about the sequel, about the villain being the best part. He stopped in the middle of the sentence. I'd been looking at his mouth, he'd caught me at it, neither of us pretended otherwise. He crossed the kitchen in 2 steps. He stopped close enough that I felt his breath and I didn't move, which was my answer. He kissed me. For a second I stood completely still, my hands gripping the counter edge behind me. Then his hand came up to my jaw, warm and certain, and my hands let go of the counter and found him, his waist, the back of his shirt, and I pulled him in and kissed him back while the popcorn went off around us and his stubble scraped against my chin. His glasses bumped my nose. I lifted them off his face one-handed without breaking away and set them on the counter, and I felt him smile against my mouth when I did it. His fingers closed in the front of my shirt, the same grip I'd seen through a hallway door a month ago. The counter edge pressed into my back. The popping slowed, neither of us noticed. It stopped altogether and we didn't notice that either. What we noticed was the smell. The popcorn, Michael said against my mouth and then, pulling back louder, the popcorn. Smoke was leaking out of the microwave vents. He yanked the door open and a gray cloud rolled out across the ceiling, and he grabbed the bag by one corner, said a word I had never heard him use, carried it at arm's length in 2 fast steps, and threw it in the sink next to my hip. The faucet hit it and the bag hissed and folded in on itself, black at the seams. The smoke detector in the hallway chirped once. He snatched the dish towel off the oven handle and fanned the ceiling until the detector gave up. "You burned the popcorn," I said. "We burned the popcorn." He was still fanning, glasses off, hair wrecked where my hand had been. "That was a joint enterprise, you're named in this." The bag sat in the sink, soaked and smoking faintly, $3 of carbon. We looked at it, and then we were both laughing, quiet and stupid in a dark kitchen at 2 in the morning, and he hung the towel back on the oven handle without taking his eyes off me. He turned the faucet off. The kitchen went quiet again, dark except for the open microwave and its little light shining on nothing. I was leaning back against the counter and my heart had not gotten the message that the emergency was over. "The sequel," I said. "I don't care about the sequel," he said. He took my hand off the counter and led me down the hall into his room. Epilogue morning etiquette. I woke up in stages. First came the light, which was wrong. My bedroom window faced west, and this light was early and gold and coming through blinds I didn't own. Then came the sheets, which were softer than mine. Then came the arm. There was an arm across my ribs. It had a cartoon cat on it. The night came back in order, the arcade, the couch, the microwave light, and everything the microwave light had started. Michael was asleep inches away, face half in the pillow, breathing slow. His glasses were folded on the nightstand. His hair had given up entirely. My heart picked up before my brain explained why. I had tended bar for 5 years and I knew the etiquette for everything, when to cut a man off, when to comp a drink, what to say to a crying bachelorette at 1 in the morning. Nobody had ever covered this. Do I leave? Do I sneak out and text him something casual from the car? Am I supposed to make coffee in another man's kitchen? Does making coffee mean something? And under all of it sat the worst question. Was he going to wake up, see me, and give me the smile that shut off, the one he used on the Odyssey guys? I went with sneaking out, on the grounds that it required no conversation. His arm was the first problem. I lifted it by the wrist 1 inch at a time and set it down on the blanket between us. He didn't stir. I slid toward the edge of the bed in increments. The mattress creaked once and I lay still for a full 30 seconds, staring at the ceiling. My shirt was hanging off the closet doorknob. My jeans were by the door. One sock was visible from where I lay and the other was gone, possibly forever, and I decided I was prepared to take that loss. I got one foot on the floor. "Where are you going?" His voice was in the pillow, flat, not awake enough for the question mark. "Water," I said, which was a lie, and we both heard it. His arm came back, hooked me across the chest, and hauled. There was more strength in it than a sleeping lawyer had any right to, and I went over backward into the blankets. He resettled himself against my back, arm heavy across my chest, knees behind mine, face against the back of my neck. "It's barely 8, he said. "Your prep is at noon." I did the math. "You did the math." I'm very good at math. His breathing was already evening out again. Stay. The sun kept climbing the blanket. Down the hall, the kitchen still smelled faintly of burnt popcorn. His arm was warm and heavy across my chest, and his breath came slow against my neck. My sock was somewhere in this house. Noon was a long time away. I closed my eyes. Quote of the week: the question of orientation becomes then a question not only about how we find our way but how we come to feel at home. Sarah Ahmed, Queer Phenomenology. Thank you for listening to The Bartender and The Closeted Lawyer. Hope you enjoyed this story. If you want to hear more, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. New stories are uploaded every Friday. Happy Pride Month.